Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we will see what is the difference between public and private subnet. So let's get started. So we know that in AWS we create VPC, that is virtual private cloud. Under that VPC we have two options. One is public subnet and one is private subnet. So I have usually seen that people talk about it, people even work on it, but they don't know what is the difference between them. So let's start. So starting with public subnet. So what is a public subnet? As the name suggests, so this is something that is meant to be accessed publicly. Of course there are some restrictions, we can put some rules and security groups and stuff, but this is the place where we will put the applications which are public facing or internet facing. So the instance in the public subnets can send outbound traffic directly to the internet. So that means if I have an instance in public subnet, it can connect to internet, it can send data to internet. So you can obviously understand that if I'm running a secure application, I would obviously not want that it should send some private data to the internet, right? I would like it to be as secluded as possible from internet. So I will definitely not put my data sensitive things or applications in my public subnet. The instance in the public subnet can get a public IP. So if I want to access something, I need an IP, right? So there are two types of IP. There is a private IP, there is a public IP. So if an instance has a public IP and you have the access, obviously you can access that server directly from the internet. Okay. And the third thing is that when should I use public subnet, or what should I deploy on my public server? So things like my web server, my application server, those things, my UI, my Angular, React app, that I can install on my public instance, which is on public subnet. Because if I'm creating a website, I obviously want people to access it via internet. So there are a lot of services that go into it to make it public and accessible, DNS and all that. We'll go into that in our coming lectures, but those are the kind of services that I would want to put in my public subnet. So what about private subnet? So in private subnet, any instance that I provision in a private subnet will not be able to send data to the internet. So this means that my application will not directly interact with internet. So that could also raise issues like if I have installed some softwares, I need to do regularly patching. So that is not possible. So for that there are some turnarounds which we'll see, but it cannot directly download the updated software, updated version, updated patch directly from internet like that. So instead, the instance in the private subnet can access the internet by using network address translation, that is NAT gateway. So the NAT gateway is a separate service which is provided by AWS. Using that we can do this, but not directly. And also that NAT gateway itself, it is not in the private subnet. So that itself resides in a public subnet. So we will do a demo, we'll create a VPC subnets, we'll see how all this work. Then instances which are in private subnet will not get a public IP, they will only get a private IP. Then so now what are the applications or things that I should ideally deploy in my private subnet? So things like database, as I said, the applications which are data sensitive, I will always deploy them in a public subnet, because my database is something that will hold all my critical data. So I would never want that someone could directly come and hack my database and take my data. So since my private subnet will never be able to access directly from internet, so I'll always provision my database in the private subnet. Now we need to set up some routing or security setups so that my web servers which are in public subnet can actually access the private subnet. We need to do some routing for that, which we will see in coming further lectures. So here is a sample which denotes how the public and private subnets are deployed. So this is a VPC under which we have a public subnet and a private subnet. So as it is depicted in the diagram, in public subnet I have my web servers, a fleet of web servers, and in my private subnet I have my database servers. So as we saw earlier, there is a NAT gateway which resides itself in public subnet, but it helps the private subnet to connect to the internet. So for that we need to do some routing. We need to make changes in a route table that we will see in coming lectures. So this is a basic example. We'll go ahead and implement this in our next lectures, but this is just to give you a basic idea what the difference is between the public and private subnets. So in our next video we'll go in the AWS console and we'll start implementing all these things.